Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Inclusive Physical Activities with Young Children with Disabilities. I'm hoping everyone can see my screen with the title. We are so glad you're here. We're going to go ahead and get started. As you know, this is a virtual session. Our Zoom webinar features, I'm just going to go over them. We are in webinar format, so no one will be on camera. Everyone is muted, so please use the question and answer box to submit questions, and Dr. Kraft always loves to answer questions. We are here for you, and we're so excited to use this format so we can have so many more people involved in the training. Please use the chat window for comments and conversation. And as you might have heard, we will be recording this session, and the webinar recording will be available on the MoveSmart website. The address is here on the slide. However, clock hours are not available for the recorded webinar if you go back and listen. It's for reference and for folks to be able to go back and hear or see items that we addressed in the webinar. But we really want to welcome you all. We are so excited that you are here. If you'll please type your name and your moped ID in the chat window, that would be great. I am Lisa Lauer, and I'm a senior nutritionist with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services in the Bureau of Community Health and Wellness. My contact information is up on the screen. I would love to hear from any of you after the training. And before I introduce Dr. Kraft, I'm going to share some physical activity opportunities that we have through the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services. So the first opportunity that I wanted to share is our MoveSmart physical activity recognition, and that is a statewide recognition that focuses on 12 criteria to ensure that childcare sites are featuring the most best practices in physical activity. We have a MoveSmart workbook that is actually right now under construction. We're doing some revisions, and Dr. Kraft has helped with those. She's reviewed the publication for us, and so we're working on updates to the workbook. We also have a set of physical activity cards that are fun activities that can be done throughout the day to incorporate movement and provide opportunities for children to practice their motor skills throughout the day. Those are also being updated. So normally you can order the MoveSmart workbook and physical activity item or cards free on our website. However, right now they, like I said, are under construction. There, I also have a picture of one of the posters that you receive when you apply for the recognition. The next opportunity that we have in the state of Missouri is a national program called Go Knapsack. And what that stands for, when I say knapsack, I always think people wonder what in the world. Well, it is actually Go Nutrition and Physical Activity Self-Assessment for Childcare. And it is a program that was developed by University of North Carolina, and it provides online modules that support healthy eating and physical activity. They help childcare programs assess and advance current practices in 7 different areas that are listed on this slide. They are infant and child physical activity, outdoor play and learning, screen time, child nutrition, farm to ECE, a project that we are really gearing up for here in Missouri, breastfeeding and infant feeding, and oral health. So a little more about Go Knapsack. This is just a flyer that we have in the state of Missouri. You will be working with a TA consultant. The TA consultant goes through 6 hours of training to become certified. And through working with a TA consultant, you would register, complete a self-assessment, set goals, and then develop action plans in whichever module you choose. Usually we suggest just working on one module at a time and picking 2 goals to work on. Once you have your goals, you're going to develop an action plan with the TA consultant through the entire process, which is such a wonderful help. They're like a cheerleader, a coach. They work with you to go through the goals, and you'll also discover resource materials. Go Knapsack has numerous quality, up-to-date materials, newsletters, a lot of resources that come with it. So at this time, we will be hosting signups to work with a TA consultant. And as you work on the modules, once you complete and go through the 5-step process, you would have an opportunity to earn a gift card from Kaplan. The gift cards are valued at $75, and you have the opportunity to earn up to 2, so $150 worth of gift cards to purchase equipment for your site to utilize and sustain the changes that you've made and the new programs that you've implemented. So we have another opportunity that we just started, and it is a training opportunity that we have in many of the counties through local public health agencies and MU Extension, and it is through NMORS, and it's called PALS. And that acronym, we love our acronyms, stands for Physical Activity Learning Sessions. And PALS is a program that, once again, helps teach best practices around physical activity. They're 5 learning sessions, and they teach you how to support physical activity development in young children, your role in physical activity in the classroom and in your childcare, and also then how to communicate to families what best practices they can help with at home and what best practices for physical activity are. So far, we've had about 50 people go through the PALS training process, and we just continue to get wonderful feedback on how much it helps the providers that have taken the training work with the children in their site and help communication with parents. And so we're really excited about PALS. And if you're interested in it or looking for an area that offers PALS, please reach out to me and I can help connect you with a training. We have trainings going on continually. So throughout the year, we just had 4 new PALS trainers trained in December, and we'll continue to have more throughout the year. And I'm excited to say that one of our fabulous pieces of this training is our Move Smart prizes. And it's time for our first prize to be awarded. And our first prize goes to Tiara Hampton. Tiara, are you on our webinar?
Lisa, I'm doing a search of our attendees right now, and I'm not seeing her name popping up.
Okay.
That she's logged in right now. So if you want to move on to another person.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Tiara says in chat that she is here.
She is? Okay, great.
She must be listening with someone else.
Okay, she is. I know she was. Okay, that's awesome. And I need to switch over to a different slide. Well, that's okay. Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Tiara is in the room. I
congratulations,
see her now. I was misspelling
Tiara.
her name.
Can we all give her a hand or a
use your reactions button down at the bottom to give her
yes, please.
Clap or a high five.
Woohoo! So, oh, and we also will send your prize packages to the address that you used when you registered. All winners, I will say, were chosen totally randomly by the MU conference office. So they gave us the names and we put them on the slideshow. And we've now come to our first clock hour poll question. And I wanted to, on this slide, I wanted to share that this is a picture of my granddaughter, Maggie. And we in Missouri also have a breastfeeding friendly childcare recognition. And I don't know if you can see Maggie's socks, but they do say, I'm not crying, I'm ordering dinner. She was a breastfed baby and she's now almost 2, and her dad's also obviously maybe a cattle farmer, a rancher, so in southern Colorado. So that's why she has her "When I Get Teeth, Feed Me Beef" shirt on.
Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and launch the question if you're ready. Is that okay?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, the question has been launched.
Okay, so as you all know, in the state of Missouri, you need to answer poll questions throughout a virtual training in order to earn your clock hours. And our first question is, Go Knapsack Online helps childcare providers assess and advance current practices in the areas of, and please make sure you select all that apply. I mentioned the areas earlier. I'll just read the list of options: infant and child physical activity, outdoor play and learning, screen time, child nutrition, farm to ECE, breastfeeding and infant feeding, and oral health. So please select all that apply. How are we doing on the poll, Erica? I can't see.
We have, looks like it's going up and up and up. So we have about 70 people that have already answered.
Okay, good. Well, let's
and
keep.
It's continuing to go up.
Perfect.
So we'll leave it on for maybe another 15 or 30 seconds.
That sounds good. Let's keep the poll open because we want to make sure everyone has time to answer.
About 76% of the people that are in the session right now have so far, now it's 80% have answered the question.
Okay, fabulous.
And I will just add that we see some questions in the chat about your different programs that you've been talking about, Lisa. So you're going to get the chat transcript later after the session, so you can maybe go through those. But also, as people are asking questions in the chat, you can also use your Q&A button to put them into the question and answer button. And if you do that,
okay.
We'll also see them, and maybe we can come back to them later in the training today. But if you're putting your question and answer in the chat, maybe mention, like, she's talking about the knapsack program right now. How can I get more information about that? Just to help Lisa with a time point later on when she's looking at the questions and she can reach out to you.
Yes, and I do see, so I see someone doesn't have their moped ID. If you do not have it with you, you can send it to me via email on Monday. Yes, you'll also be able to type it into, well, you will be required to type it into our final poll question, which will be dropped into there'll be a link dropped into the chat at the end of the training, and you will complete that through a Qualtrics survey.
Mm-hmm. So we have about 89% have answered the question, and it's kind of stalled out there. So if you're ready to close the poll, I'll close it.
Okay.
And then
sounds good.
I'm going to share the results here. Can you see the results, Lisa?
I can.
Okay.
And so the answer, I don't know if this is necessarily a trick question, but all of the items that were listed, all 7, are modules in the Go Knapsack that you can work on. So you could work on any of those modules.
Okay. So are you ready to stop sharing this and we'll go on?
Yes.
Okay.
I am going to stop sharing, and
looks like Diane's already brought her slides up.
Perfect. Introduce Diane H. Craft, PhD. I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay. All right, and I will get things set up here and join you all in just a moment.
And we are so excited to have Dr. Craft with us again. This is our 3rd virtual training with Diane, Dr. Craft, and Missouri loves having her. Let me see if I can.
Okay. And while you're checking, would someone give me feedback? Are you seeing my title slide? And is it displaying?
We are seeing your slide, but we're also seeing your notes slide. So you'll need to change your.
That's not so great. Thank you.
Let
Here we go. Okay. Is that the correct view? now?
perfect.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Let me know when I should start, Lisa.
Okay. I am looking for, just a minute. I am so sorry. I'm looking for I was going to your background information.
Oh, I can introduce myself. That's
I
fine.
will let you then. Thank you, Diane. I'm going to turn it over.
Thank you. And thank you for the chance to be here. And I'm delighted to have so many people on this Saturday morning. So congratulations, everybody, for your professionalism here. So I'm Diane Kraft. I'm now retired. I taught for decades in the physical education department at the State University of New York in Cortland, New York. I taught primarily in adapted physical education, as well as elementary physical education, preparing undergrad and graduate physical education teachers. And my doctorate is in adapted physical education. So we are exactly in my favorite area with the webinar today. I also have the privilege of consulting with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention as their subject matter expert on early childhood physical activity. And it's in that regard that I'm here today. So this is acknowledging that it's funding through the CDC that allows me to join you today. So where are we headed? Well, 3 different objectives. First is to describe developmentally appropriate, non-competitive or minimally competitive, and most importantly, inclusive physical activities for young children, primarily preschoolers, could work with some toddlers, but pretty much focused on preschoolers, can work with kindergarten, maybe first grade, and then they're at a different level. So physical activity ideas. And second objective, a little bit on how to lead these and emphasizing inexpensive equipment. Several of the activities work in small spaces, and we're seeking to give preschoolers the freedom to experiment and explore movement. And then third, and the primary focus, ideas for modifying these activities to include children with a variety of disabilities and developmental delays, so everybody's playing together. So quick poll here. Could you please let me know what setting you work in? Is it home-based? So Erica, you could launch the poll at this point. And is your
Okay, I'll work on launching that.
home-based, or do you work in a center or a Head Start or school-sponsored pre-K? Or do you work in a special education childcare center? Or are you a trainer or a coach of people who work directly with children? Or are you a therapist, physical, occupational, speech therapist, and so forth? Just appreciate you putting in a response there. And
Go ahead.
if you've joined a workshop that I've given before, you might see some of the same physical activity ideas along with some different ones. But the focus today is on the modifying of them. So how's the poll going?
We have 82% of the people in the session today have already answered the question.
Great.
Do you want to leave it open for a little
No.
longer or feel like that's probably
Just summarize, please.
okay? Let me share the results. I think you can see the results on your screen now.
Oh, okay. Yes. So 19% are home-based childcare. And I'm very glad you're here. And 65% in centers or Head Start or pre-K programs, 4% special education childcare. And I'm guessing you have a lot of expertise in this area, along with the 10% of the trainers and the 2% of the therapists. So if you have a lot of experience working with young children with disabilities, please share that as we go along, and particularly in the question part at the end. So thank you for that. And then the next one is, what's your role? This might be a little repetitive for some of you. So are you somebody who's a teacher or a provider who works directly with children on a daily basis? Or family child care? I think I've got some redundancy here. We already know that. Therapist, early interventionist, meaning you probably work with children age 3 and younger. Are you a director of a program or a coach or trainer? And I have more redundance there than I realized, so we'll just spend a moment with this and then move right on.
So we have 75% or so have already answered the question. It's still going up. We've got about 82% have answered the question so far. In the poll here.
And I appreciate everyone who has answered. It really gives me a better idea of who's
There, I think you can see the results, Diane.
So 56 are teacher or assistant teacher, 13% family child care, 2% therapist, we have one early interventionist, 16% directors, and 13% coaches and trainers. So thank you both for that. And now let's move on. So of course, we're focusing on physical activity today, and it is really key to all children's development. And providing young children with physical activity opportunities is an important responsibility of early childhood educators. And sometimes it might not be at the forefront because you're often expected to know the numbers, colors, shapes, and how to get along with others and so forth. But physical development impacts all other areas of development. So it's really important that children have many, many opportunities to be physically active throughout every day. So when it comes to toddlers and preschoolers with disabilities, there's many, many similarities to others, but some needs might be more pronounced because of the disability. So a child might need extra help with communicating, whether you're using sign or just, of course, speech therapists are amazing in this area, helping people vocalize. May need help understanding instructions, may learn a bit slower, so need lots of practice with that. May need a little help with focusing, and physical activity can really help somebody be optimally focused. Lots of practice learning. If a child learns slowly, they're typically going to need many more opportunities to practice that skill before they learn it. So we need to give those opportunities. Some children need a little extra help in sharing and cooperating. I think you could probably name a few children that need that extra help. And then finally, increasing or decreasing activity. Some children kind of need to light a firecracker under them, and others, it's all about help them focus and calm down. And a little too much random activity. So the children that you work with may have speech or language delays or developmental delays. An amazingly large number of children are diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum, or intellectual disabilities, whether it's Down syndrome or any possible cause, and emotional difficulties. So, and attention deficit with hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. So when they're so young, it's often that there's no specific diagnosis. We just know that this child's going to need a little extra help in this area or that. So last poll for here, there'll be another one later. Please let me know if you have a child with one or more of these disabilities. And if you do not, then just click other. I think that would be a way to handle it. So if you're not currently working with or haven't recently worked with someone with one of these disabilities, click other. And if it's a disability that's not listed here, then you could specify that in the chat.
We have about 55 to 60% people have answered the question. And right now, developmental delays and autism spectrum disorder are tied, but the answers are still coming in.
Yeah, and that's very much what I would expect, because those are the two most common um, developmental delays and autism
Okay, so
disorder.
in the poll and share the results so you can see them now, Diane.
Thank you. Yes, so 39% are indicating you work with children with developmental delays, and 33% on the autism spectrum, 3% with physical disabilities. So as we're going along with physical disabilities and the 2% with visual impairments, feel free to put comments or questions in the Q&A, and either throughout or at the end, we'll try to brainstorm together if you're wondering, how can this particular child participate? So modifications really can help it so that everybody gets to participate together. And physical activity may be especially important for children who may lack the motivation to explore movement. Like, this is a photo of a little guy that's got some orthopedic limitations. He's got some compression socks on, and I'm off out of the photo at this point, but I am trying my best to entice him to stand up and play with this piece of equipment that I've got there that I'll explain a little bit later. So motivating him is everything, because standing and moving is hard for him. Or may find movement harder work due to physical limitations. Yep, as I just mentioned. Or may perseverate on the same movements. And this may be particularly characteristic of some children on the autism spectrum. So, and a hint, learn these three. It's going to show up in a quiz in a little bit. So physical activity is important for everybody, but it may be really, really important if a child has one or more of these characteristics: lack of motivation, movement's physically difficult, or tends to do the same movement over and over again, perseverating on the same movements. I'm a very strong proponent of inclusion, with everybody playing together, and particularly in the early years, because if there are delays, they're likely to, the gap between what typically developing child can do and what a child with a developmental delay is able to do, that gap is likely to widen as they get older. So let's establish the idea we're all similar enough, we all can play together and have fun together when children are very young. Because again, the differences are usually less pronounced at this age. So we want to make playing together with everybody the norm. That's just the way we do things. And so that means younger, older children, and more and less skilled children, and children with and without disabilities playing together. So before getting into some of the physical activities and modifications, I'd just like to share a little bit about motor development, because it does have an impact on what we're doing with young children. So before birth until some months after birth, we're in the reflexive movement phase. And, you know, stimulation of the side of the cheek, you get the newborn turning, looking for the nipple to get some nutrient. The rudimentary phase, I'll give examples of in a moment, but this is birth to about 1.5 years or 2 years of age. And the fundamental movement phase, I'll also explain, but this is 2 to 6, 7, or 8 years of age in typically developing children. If there's a developmental delay, it's likely to last longer. And then the specialized movement phase that all of us are in as adults. So we're going to focus on the rudimentary and the fundamental movement phase. So the rudimentary movements are when an infant is learning how to roll over, to scoot, to crawl, to creep, to walk with support, and eventually alone, to control their head and neck initially. And you can see that, of course, the head is so much larger relative to the rest of the body in an infant. It really takes some work to control that head. And then if you layer on spastic cerebral palsy or some other physical disability, head control is a really important thing. And then, of course, grasping, releasing, you know, manipulative. So those are the kinds of things addressed in the rudimentary movements. And then the fundamental movements include 3 categories: the locomotor skills, moving from here to there; the object control skills, where we take an object and we throw it, catch it, kick it, strike it, as in batting, and so forth; and the stability, which can be put in terms of axial, springing, upright, inverted, or I like thinking stability is basically keeping our balance. So swinging, swaying, stretching, bending, twisting, turning, like a forward roll, or a log roll. Those would be examples of stability. Well, and sometimes a child with a disability is going to need a different way of doing those movement skills because of a physical limitation. So young children need a lot of practice in all of those skills I just showed, the rudimentary and the fundamental movement skills, the run, walk, kick, catch, kick, and so forth. And so for everybody, we're looking to get lots of practice with those fundamental movement skills, improve the physical fitness, and learn movement concepts that I'll come to a little later. But when there's a disability, a goal might be emphasized or de-emphasized more. For example, physical fitness. Having good strength and endurance is important for everybody, but it turns out it's especially important for children, or actually as people become adults, with developmental delays and intellectual disabilities, because particularly with the intellectual disabilities, a lot of the jobs the person may have is likely to be physical. And if you don't have that minimum level of fitness, it's hard to do your job. And unfortunately, that's the case. So physical fitness becomes a really important goal from young children right up on through if there's intellectual disabilities. So here's that quiz. This one counts. So you want to be sure to answer this one because it counts toward your earning your clock hour for this training. So please collect the one correct answer, and you could mount the poll now. Physical activity may be especially important for young children who may lack the motivation to explore movement, or may tend to perseverate or do over and over the same movements, or find movement difficult because of physical limitations, or all three, all of the above. So please click the one that you think is the best answer.
We have about 62% coming in so far.
Okay, well, this one,
And there's a,
I want to rush through it.
yeah, this one has a clear winner right now.
Good.
I'll leave it open a few more seconds here. We've got about 82, 83% of the audience has participated. See if we can get that up to 90. So we've got about 88% of the audience has participated. If you're okay, I'll close the poll. That's okay with you, Diane?
That works. Thank you.
And share the results with you so that you can see
Okay.
that.
96% of you have the correct answer. It's all of the above. Very good. Thank you. That's all right. So here's the basic structure for a modifying. This is the ecological task analysis. You don't need to know that word or those words, but the idea is, okay, here's the child with a disability. Whatever it is that we're asking to do might be a little too challenging. So what can we change? Can we change the environment? Can we change the situation in which they're in? Are they very distractible? Can we make the environment less distracting so they can focus on the task? Or can we change the task? Can we make it simpler? Or can we change what the equipment's used in the task? You know, what can we do to change the environment or the task so it meets the needs of this individual? That's the general structure for modifying things. I'll be starting to share some physical activities, and they come from the book that my husband Craig Smith and I have written, Active Play, Fun Physical Activities for Young Children. And there, I'll show some video clips, and they're on the DVD that comes with this book. So first one is All Stop and Go to Music. You're probably doing something like this already, and it's really, really important because you turn on the music, the children listen, they know they can start moving clockwise, in this case, around the flat foam poodles I put in on the floor there, or the ground, to organize them. And most importantly, when the music stops, freeze, stop. So it's very good in organizing physical activities for everybody, but it's really, really important for those children who happen to be very impulsive and only know fast, don't know slow or stop, and to give them a lot of practice with that. I've been volunteering at a local childcare center, and my first experience there last week was a disaster because I did not have things set up the way I needed to. So my second experience this week was wonderful. And it's because I said, oh, Diane, just use what you know. You got to teach them how to start and stop on cue. So we did a whole series of activities that involved starting and stopping on cue, including All Stop and Go to Music. And it went beautifully. So now I can go on to more complicated things because I've got the basics in place. They know how to start and stop on cue. So when it comes to impulsive children, excuse me, we need to have very clear, short instructions because they won't be listening very long anyway. We need clear boundaries. And what I usually do is have something to mark the boundaries. Cones work. I like a rope on the floor. Or if it's in a room, then I try to put a sheet or something over any equipment to the side that they're not to touch until I'm ready for that. So the boundaries are just the walls of the room. But I also like saying, can I go here? Yes. Can I go over here? No. And basically I'm checking for understanding with that. In the All Stop and Go to Music and other activities, sometimes I just hold that very impulsive child's hand. So when the music's playing, we're going along together. When the music stops, I'm stopping, I'm holding their hand so they feel we're stopping. And of course, I pair that with stop and check for understanding. So we just try to have our cues really, really clear if there's a child that's impulsive, and give them a lot of opportunities to practice that impulse control. And I'm guessing lots of you work with young children that have difficulty with impulse. And also, where it makes sense, ask the child to say what they're going to do before they start doing it, so you know they've thought it through. Let's us have a physical activity break ourselves right now. So please push back from your chair. Let's do some play in place.
I like to bounce in place, bounce. To bounce in place, bounce. To bounce in place, bounce. To bounce in place. I like to walk in place, walk. To walk in place, walk. To walk in place, walk. To walk in place. I like to run in place, run. To run in place, run. To run in place, run. To run in place. I like to march in place, march. To march in place, march. To march in place, march. To march in place.
Now it's just intermission. Whatever you put here. So you can move it out. Amazing. Starts again.
I like to climb in place, climb. To climb in place, climb. To climb in place, climb. To climb in place. I like to jump in place, jump. To jump in place, jump. To jump in place, jump. To jump in place. I like to hop in place, hop. To hop in place, hop. To hop in place, hop. To hop in place. I like to kick in place, kick. To kick in place, kick. To kick in place, kick. To kick in place.
Okay, get the whistles out. All right. I hope you've used that opportunity to get a little physical activity. And there are resources available So this song that the people you saw on the previous one here, that's available. It's going to be one of the resources that comes with this training, or you can just take a screenshot and go to Marta Shin's website and get a copy of it. The lyrics are in English, other ones in Spanish, and there's just instrumental, so you could put in your own. And it's in place, so you could do it anywhere. Very easy to have a physical activity break with play in place. So now let's focus on modifications for young children who may experience physical limitations. And modifications there, if moving from place to place during a physical activity is difficult, then we're going to shorten the distance. So not moving nearly as far. Or if it's like a throwing activity, move the child closer to the target so they can see what's going, or so they've got a better shot of throwing the rolled sock or the yarn ball or the spongy whatever at the target. And promoting head control. And I mentioned this earlier, particularly for children with physical limitations such as spastic cerebral palsy or other forms. It's very hard for a child to hold their head up. So I really like the inclusive physical activities, because then they want to be part of it with everybody else and will often make that extra effort to keep their head up so they can see what's going on and participate. And of course, when it comes to physical limitations, therapists are expert. Physical therapists and occupational therapists can be our best friends. So if you're working with a child with physical limitation and they are receiving the services of a therapist, please try to communicate with the therapist. They can give some excellent recommendations for positioning and support. And then we can use assistive devices. So here you see it's just to help this little girl push along. That's a simple example. We can increase stability if a child has balance difficulties by being seated in a wheelchair or a walker or a chair, or mobility with a gait trainer or a scooter. And if they have a lot of balance difficulties, we want to be sure that they're in a mobile prone stander or sitting in a chair so they can use their upper body for some throwing activities as well. And I'm just going to go back a little bit because I'd like you to see this photo. So this little girl is using like a modified walker, but it allows her to be up and walking when her balance is limited. And so we don't want her to be out of things and unable to participate. We're just going to give her something that's going to allow her to be more active. And then here you see the cheap version. So bubble wrap jumping is another physical activity. And here it's just tape a strip of bubble wrap on the carpet or the wood floor and put on lively music and encourage the children to jump as they're going along. So they just jump, 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 jump. The bubbles pop when you jump on them, and that's the motivation to be physically active here. So this works with everybody. It works particularly well if there's a child that lacks the motivation to be physically active. And on that note, Renee McCall, who I've learned a great deal from, an early childhood adapted physical educator, was able to put down some strips of bubble wrap, and a little boy, 4 years old with Down syndrome, who had just learned how to walk, but was much happier sitting and not doing any physical activity than getting up and active, was so excited to hear the bubbles pop that he actually was almost running. So this is an example of create the environment that's going to motivate the child to be physically active. And to hear those bubbles pop was highly motivating to him. So he no longer wanted to sit. He was up and nearly running, popping the bubbles. Of course, everybody travel in the same direction. Now, if a child uses a wheelchair, instead of trying to pop the bubbles, that child could be trying to push the wheelchair along the strip here, straddling it so they're not popping any bubbles. Or, of course, go right down the middle and pop all the bubbles. You see, the first thing I have listed here is pica tendencies. And you may know that's the tendency to eat things that aren't really food, like wallpaper, dirt, paper, whatever. So people with Prader-Willi syndrome and other disabilities sometimes have pica tendencies. And so this would be dangerous because we do not want the child to bite that bubble wrap because it could lead to choking and suffocation. So also I learned from Renee McCall, a child that didn't need a walker or a gait trainer, she had in the gait trainer just for this activity because that piece of equipment made it so that the child could not get her mouth down to bite the bubble wrap. So by modifying the equipment, she was able to have this child participate with everybody else without the concern the child was going to bite the bubble wrap and maybe have a poor outcome. Then there's the children who seem very active. So we need to provide ways for these children to be physically active, but with control. And here's a few examples as we'll go through. So having a physical activity center in the room can work really well. And I think I'm going to stop just a moment here and stop sharing so you can see what I'm talking about. So here's a piece of equipment. If you've been in a webinar with me before, I'm sure you've seen it because I love having balloons completely covered inside pantyhose or tights. And what you can do is take this and just hang it in the corner of a room. And then the children can tap it or bring out a foam pool noodle and they can strike it. And so it makes it very easy for a child to be physically active as an option during the class or during the childcare day, where, you know, there's a kitchen center, there's a dress up center, there's a block center. Let's have a physical activity center. And there's other opportunities to put in the physical activity center as well, but I just wanted to highlight this. And then a story that goes along with it. Melanie Fuchs, an excellent Montessori teacher that I've worked with, told the story of a young boy who was having a lot of difficulties. Things were not going the way he would have liked. At home, he brought a great deal of anger into the preschool classroom, the Montessori classroom, and would last about 15 minutes before he'd have to be taken out because he's been kicking or punching or biting somebody else, and help him calm down, come back in. So this was not going well at all. They hung this in the corner and gave the option of anybody who wants, you can go over. This child wailed on this for 45 minutes and then said, okay, I'm done. So what they did was give him a way to express his extreme anger that didn't involve hurting other people. He was able to get it out and then calm down. So not just, well, anyway, it really helps. The very active child is telling us, I need more physical activity. The very angry child is telling us, I need a way to express my anger, but not hurt anybody else. And so here we go, just a simple idea there. So let me go back to share screen. Okay, and just want to double check. You seeing my screen okay?
Yes, we are seeing your screen.
Excellent.
I do have a question in the chat that maybe you can just quickly answer. Someone is saying, do you have another idea as our center doesn't allow balloons, but you might talk about how your pantyhose covers the balloons to make it safe?
Yes, two different things. First, if balloons are not allowed, beach balls work well. And then so that's a workaround. It's fine. The other bit is the covered balloons do make it safe. And of course, we're supervising children all the time, whether they're engaged in physical activity or other things. So in my experience, when the balloons have popped, they tend to stay inside the pantyhose. Actually, no, they don't tend to stay. They always stay inside the pantyhose. And so as the adult, we see and hear that the balloons popped. We take away that deflated balloon, dispose of the shard someplace where no child can get a hold of it, put a new balloon inside, inflate it, and we're good to go again. So that really gets around the potential choking hazard. I never use uncovered balloons because, again, a child could bite the balloon, pop it, inhale the shard, could cover the windpipe, and we've got a big, big tragedy on our hands. So I hope those two suggestions help. And I guess my third thing would be, is it a center limitation that you can't use balloons? And then you might approach the person who's in charge of that limitation with this covered balloon option, and maybe they'll realize, oh, that looks pretty safe. We could probably use balloons in that context. So thank you for that answer. Or, I mean, for that question, so I could give that answer. I appreciate that. Okay. So next, in addition to providing a way children can be very active, we can give them some deep pressure or do heavy work. And anything where the child can get on the floor, on the ground, also can help with calming down a little more regulation. So here, I'd just like to show this activity. It's the throwing activity. And excuse me, let me go back a little bit here. So before I continue with the deep pressure ideas, I want to just talk about that activity a little more. So we throw rolled socks or any light objects that aren't like beanbags. That's going to hurt if you get hit with it. So we don't do anything as heavy as throwing beanbags. It's also in terms of an idea of what you could put in this corner of the room. You could have a laundry basket and a target on the wall and a whole bunch of rolled socks. So anytime somebody wanted, they can come over and throw those rolled socks at the target and have them fall into the laundry basket, dump it out when everything's thrown, start it again. So that could be an individual activity, or as you saw there, it could be something where the entire family childcare group does it together. And throughout, if they see an activity where a toddler's doing it, then probably that older child with developmental delays would also be able to do it. A child with a visual impairment can participate. Yeah, we're all going to get socks that hit us in the face or elsewhere, but it's fabric, it doesn't hurt. And so you can make sure there's a pile of socks in front of the child if the child's totally blind. And so they can feel the sock, pick it up and heave it and be part of the activity along with everybody else. And yes, sometimes get hit in the face, but it won't injure the child. And they need to learn to experience these things so that they have the fortitude to get out there and do physical activities, to not be afraid of movement. Because if they're afraid of movement, that really, really limits their life opportunities. For the child with a physical limitation, could be right up next to the barrier if grasping and releasing is really hard for the child. So everybody can participate together, but each at his or her own level. So now I'd like to address a little bit more about deep pressure. Because particularly if children have sensory integration issues, and that might be the case if a child's on the autism spectrum, they need lots of opportunities to really feel where their body is, and deep pressure can help with that. And I acknowledge the greater expertise that occupational therapists have in this area. So if you can talk to an occupational therapist for more ideas about deep pressure, that is great. So here, this activity we call push and pull baskets. And so you can see one child's getting a ride in the basket pushed by another child. Well, that pushing child is getting a lot of deep pressure in their joints, and that's exactly what we're looking for here. It helps a child figure out where I am in space and feel more secure. Other examples of deep pressure, anything where the child's taking weight on the hands. So in this photo, you see it's just a paper plate. It's got a character picture on it. And the child is pushing that paper plate across the floor. And you can almost make out there's a little green image of a kangaroo on the plate. That's actually a foam puzzle piece. And so she's doing puzzles, pushing that paper plate with a puzzle on it from one end to another end of the living room, and then putting the puzzle piece in the frame, and then pushing the plate back, get another puzzle piece, push it down, put it in the frame, and so forth. Well, she's learning how to do puzzles. She's getting physical activity. She's working on muscular strength and endurance, and she's doing heavy work. She's getting that deep pressure as she's pushing that plate. Another example is, but this is actually my favorite, when you've got an immovable wall, not an accordion wall, but something that's absolutely solid, then challenge a child, could you move that wall, please? And you get that, oh, I'm pushing really hard. Of course, the wall's not going to move, but they're getting all that deep pressure in their joints of their upper and lower body as they're straining to push as hard as they can against that wall. And of course, you can make it fun and tease and so forth. Pulling and dragging heavy objects, as you saw in the previous one, push and pull baskets, and log rolls. There's also the taco, the human taco, where a child's folded head out, but folded in a mat, and you gently press on the mat so that the child is getting that deep pressure throughout their whole body. And again, occupational therapists are a very good source for additional ideas here. But that deep pressure can very often help a child who's scattered, out of control, sensory integration issues, get a little more focused and ready to do whatever's next. Here's another video. Talk about heavy work. So I understand it's about 8 pounds to a gallon of water, and there were 5 in there. So those preschoolers are lugging 40 pounds. And obviously it's cooperative as well. So are there heavy work activities that you like to use? If so, please share them in the chat. And then I've asked them, either Lisa or the moderators, to just survey what's in there. I'm going to continue, but then remind me when it looks like people have had a chance to put activities in the chat, and then please read off what they have. So any heavy work activities that you use that give that deep pressure to children and really can help them get back grounded and in control. And of course, helping children calm themselves, particularly with children that have lots of energy, that's unfocused and basically wild. So we want to teach them how to calm down. So relaxation or yoga works great. Deep breathing, and we ourselves will do a little bit of deep breathing in just a moment, works very, very well. Sometimes dimming the lights or playing quiet, calm music. I usually use guided imagery, so the children, lie down on the floor. You're on a beach and the warm sun is beating down on you and the sand is warm under your body and you're just so relaxed and so forth. You get the idea. So it can be very helpful. We need to teach children slow and relaxed, because sometimes they only know fast and very agitated. So let me stop sharing for a moment and let's us do what I call the breathing hand. So, and I'm going to sit, but I encourage you to stand up for this. I'm just sitting so you can see what's going on. But this is a brief physical activity break. So take one hand, hold it out in front of you. Take your index finger on the other hand. And we're just going to use this as a physical image to guide deep breathing. So as we go up the finger or thumb, we inhale. And as we go down, we exhale. So here we go. So inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Okay. Just helps a little calming. I did this on Wednesday with the preschool children, and I typically do it after, like at the end of the physical activity time, to help them calm down, settle, so forth, and worked really well. So let me go back to sharing here, and I hope that helped for you to take a few deep breaths. Okay.
That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to break in and share. We've got quite a few responses in the chat, and I just want to share a few, and then we have another prize. So we had all kinds of great ideas. A lot of people utilize wagons.
Mhm.
And let's see, I use a wagon. We take turns pulling, the children take turns pulling each other. My children will carry their cots together and bring them to me. Pushing a weighted Tonka trunk on the floor, around the floor or the playground. Change up surfaces for greater resistance. Children helping throughout the day, carrying gallons of paint or glue from one teacher to another. Push boxes of books from one place to another. We fill up bags of sand that they can move around. We put blocks in empty diaper boxes and have kids push them around the floor.
Wonderful ideas.
Yeah, they push each other on bikes, carry a weighted ball. So many great ideas. I wish I could go through all of them, but we're at 9:45, so I'm going to share the next prize too real quick. I'm going to share my slide.
Okay, I finally remembered to stop share, Lisa, so it's back to you.
Okay, no, that's okay, because I'm hoping. Can you all see the prize slide?
No, we don't see your slides yet.
Okay.
And your volume's a little low, Lisa.
My what?
And your volume is a little low. I don't know if others are.
You sound farther away. I think you took
Okay.
your headset off, so you're not quite as clear.
I did. My computer's doing a weird thing with the volume. So here we go. Sorry about that.
That's much better on your sound. And I can see that your person is in the room.
Okay, great. Okay. So now am I on task now?
You're good.
Okay, good.
We can't see your slides, but we can hear you.
You can't?
No.
Doggone it. Okay. The winner is, I'm not sure why you can't see my slides. But the winner is Aubriana Humphrey, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Aubriana Humphrey, congratulations. And I guess I
She's here. She said it in the chat. She's here.
Okay,
And
great.
thanks. So we can all
I'm
give her
gonna-
a round of applause.
We do
I
have a
interrupted
slide.
you, Lisa. What were you going to say?
We
There
do
you
have
go.
a slide for you. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see
Okay.
it. Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, let's, I'm gonna turn it back to Diane so we can get,
And Ms.
on
Humphrey will
the
reach out to you using the address and email address that you shared when you registered.
yes, congratulations.
Okay. So there we go.
Okay, I've stopped sharing.
Yes.
All right, and I will start sharing.
Okay, Diane, we can see your slides again.
Excellent.
Spiders and bugs.
Thank you again for everybody with those really good heavy work ideas. All right, so spiders and bugs. I'm just going to go straight to playing the video and then talk a little bit more about what's going on. So back to this slide now with spiders and bugs. Non-elimination, we need to teach the gentle touch, gently on the shoulder or back, and then assist a child as needed. And as I was mentioning, if a child has trouble maneuvering, maybe that child is going to move by using a log roll if creeping is not a movement the child can do at this point due to a physical limitation. But they still can tag people. If we give them a foam pool noodle, that extends their reach and they can tag people as they're going by and so forth. So everybody participates together. We just build in the modifications. And that's a good one. I really recommend spiders and bugs. And next time you do it, you can make it shake snakes and frogs or whatever you want. But it's a good one to do. Here's another activity. This is where we're reinforcing the cognitive concepts. We call it matching numbers. And so with it, well, actually, let me stop sharing and I'll just talk through this as I do it. So you could see, well, you can't because I stopped sharing. So let me show you here. So there's a file folder that's got pockets and cards that fit in it. And so the idea is to have all the cards at one end of the open space, and each child picks up one card and then uses a locomotor skill. They could run or hop or jump or tiptoe or walk backwards or log roll down to the other end. And then with their card, they figure out where does the card match? Well, these are both the cards with a 1 on it. So you put the card in the slot for 1 and then go back and, you know, pick up another card. And it could be that this time it's the card with 3. So you look around and put it in the slot for 3 and so forth. So for a young child with developmental delays, this carry game, which is what we call activities where you start here, you go down, you do something, you come back and forth and back and forth. This carry game is really focused on just going down and coming back, not out the door, not down the hallway, down and back. So that's what this child's trying to, we're helping this child learn. But there could be another far more advanced child in the group that knows their numbers and knows what matching is. So that's not a challenge. So for that particular child, they could take 2 cards and 2 plus 1 is 3. So they put it in the slot for 3. Or 2 minus 1 is 1 if they're very, very advanced in doing subtraction. So the idea is we vary the challenge within the same activity for each child. Some children it's just down and back and somebody else can help them figure out, oh, look, it's the same. This goes in here. They look exactly the same. That's the 1. And for another child, they're practicing the beginning arithmetic, the beginning addition. But everybody plays together. We just vary the challenge for the individual children. So this activity that I've shared before, if you've been in other sessions, it can easily be modified. So that's matching numbers. How about if we want to make it matching shapes or matching colors or matching the child's picture with the name of the child or whatever is on target for the ability of the children that you're working with, well, then we can just put Velcro on the back. And instead of the number, we now put the shape or the color card or whatever. So we can easily modify it. And then you may already have a product where you don't have to make the file folder and you could use that product instead. But same idea, it's working on matching as the children are going down and back. So they're getting their physical activity, but they're also rehearsing their cognitive concepts. Let me go back to sharing here. Okay. And then, of course, when it comes to modifications, we work with what the child is able to do. So if the child's not running yet, walking down and back is perfectly fine. If the child's not walking yet, they could crawl or creep. And of course, they'd start at a point much closer to the file folders because it's going to take longer for them to move. We could offer a hand for a greater stability as we shorten the distance they're traveling. So we just, make some little changes there and it's perfectly fine. Let's us take another physical activity break here. So I'm going to stop sharing. And this is rolling the dice. And you may have seen this before too. This is a chance for us to stand up and do a little bit of physical activity. So I have a Kleenex box, excuse me, that I've put images of different locomotor skills on. So we've got hop and jump. Let's see, hop again, skip, walk, leap, and there's one more here, slide. And on the other Kleenex box, I covered it with the numbers 1 through 6. So this is just a little novelty to encourage children to be physically active. So let's us do it. Stand up, please, right by your chair where you can see me here. And then you'd roll the dice, which I'm not going to do because you couldn't see it on the floor, and see what it comes up. So let's say the number 4 came up and the hop. So let's hop 4 times. That's 1 foot to the same foot. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then roll it again. And this time it might be jump and 6 times. So jump is 2 feet to the same 2 feet. So ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then it might be slide and 4. So slide like a side step. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's come back. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's make it trickier. Turn, 2, 3, 4, and back. Turn, 2, 3, 4. All right. Just hope you got a little bit of a physical activity break there and a novel way of getting children physically active. Because pretty soon after you've shown how it works, they're going to want to roll the dice and typically will be very eager to do whatever it is that comes up with the rolled dice. And here again is just the image of those two. So something you can make yourself, put the movements on that you'd like the children to practice. Maybe the numbers 1 through 6 is not enough. So instead you're going to put numbers 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, whatever's going to work in your setting. Okay, now I'd like to go back to something I mentioned earlier. This is using the covered balloon. So easy punching. Let me explain. And let me stop share so you can see this. Okay, so in that activity, everybody was able to play together. When the balloon is suspended, covered and suspended, it means when you tap it, it's going to come right back to you. So that means the child with very limited voluntary control can, have that chance because it's suspended. It's much better than trying to catch a tossed ball or something. The child who's unable to use the lower limbs can use the upper limbs and vice versa. If it's hard, the child could be seated instead of standing, so they have more balance there. So it's pretty straightforward for any and everybody. And you might have noticed at the end of the video, there was a girl who had a prosthetic arm. She was born without the limb there, and only 3 days earlier had first been fitted with a prosthetic arm. So she's 4 years old, and for the first time she's wearing this. And it was just hanging at her side because she wasn't used to using it. And so at the end of that video, when she grabbed the balloon with 2 hands, with a prosthetic arm and her own arm, that was one of the first times she used that prosthesis to help her. And it was pretty exciting that she's beginning to learn this is a tool. So how is this made? It's pantyhose. Of course, hardly anybody wears pantyhose anymore, so tights work really well, no problem. We stitched the waistband nearly completely closed and left about a 1-inch gap. Put the deflated balloon in, and I strongly recommend using punch bowl quality balloon. We happen to get them from Dollar Tree, wherever you get them is fine, but these are sturdier than the party balloons. So it's quite rare that they will pop. I do not use party balloons. So inflate it, tie it off, give a couple extra tugs so the air doesn't seep out, tuck it underneath, and the legs are still attached. So once it's inflated the first time, we tie the legs into a knot at the base of the butt, like a square knot, and cut them off. And now the balloon is safe without the choking hazard when the legs are not on it. But when we want to suspend it, as you saw in the first part of that video, we've got the 2 legs tied together to make one long strip, and we just snake that underneath that knot. And so now it's ready for easy kicking, easy tapping, or use the foam pool noodle, easy striking. Great piece of equipment. Again, if balloons are not going to be an option, even if they're punch bowl quality balloons, use the beach balls and it'll work nearly as well. And let me go back to sharing here. So again, because it's tethered, that means that the children with motoric difficulties or developmental delays that might be a little slower in their reaction time are going to be able to play along with everybody else. So it really helps when it's tethered. If you do have a child with, what do you call it? Latex sensitivity, particularly if you have a child with spina bifida, or a child or an adult who's had a lot of surgeries, there might be the latex sensitivity. Most people are okay if they don't have skin contact with the latex balloon. So covered balloon would be fine. If somebody's extremely sensitive to latex that could trigger anaphylactic shock, then you would not use balloons at all. Definitely use the beach balls. And again, easy punching. And there you can see in the photo the girl that has the prosthesis instead of the right arm, and she's right in there. I mean, why wouldn't she be? If a child is unable to use the arms, then they use their feet, whatever. And same thing using the pool noodles for striking here. If a child learns slowly, we're going to want to give a lot of practice. So very simple tasks, just the minimum that's needed. Short directions, coupled with demonstration. Check. Am I using vocabulary the child understands? Do they, what do I need to change so the child understands what the task is here? And give lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of practice. And encouragement to go along with that practice. So pretty straightforward things, just really important. And I strongly believe in avoiding or minimizing competition. Why would we want to lead highly competitive activities when we know the child who learns slowly is likely to have more trouble with this? Why would we set them up for failure? So I like using non-competitive activities, or, where it's just very minimally competitive with everybody. And when we're physically active, that's when children can learn their movement concepts. So I'm just going to quickly breeze through this because these movement concepts, who we're moving with, how, and so forth, are a very important part of our vocabulary. So in terms of spatial relationships, our different body parts, head, toes, knees, toes, shoulders, elbows, wrists. When we're physically active, that's the chance to reinforce what these body parts are, and then moving with others and together. Spatial awareness is key. I mean, how often do we say, jump down, come over here, turn around, walk backwards, reach up high? Children need to learn what these vocabulary words are. And if a child learns particularly slowly, then we need to very intentionally teach them these vocabulary words. And what better way to learn them than by actually doing them with our bodies? And of course, effort. Fast, slow, strong, light, move in a free or a very bound way. So keep in mind, the movement concepts are very important for children to learn because we use them all the time in instructions. Now, a little bit on children that are on the autism spectrum. As you see the little boy here walking on the tree cookies. The structure and routine seem to be like the foundation. So to give the child security, let's have routines so they know that when they come in, this is what we're doing first. Then we're going to do that second. Then we're doing this next thing third. The structure. If you use floor spots like poly spots, where every child's got their own spot on the floor, the child on the autism spectrum is probably going to want that same spot every time. Not any spot, but that's my spot. So we want to make sure we structure it so that they get that security of, I know what's coming next and I can dare to be involved because I know the structure and the routine of what we're doing. And then visual schedules and communication systems often work well. This is where speech therapists can help out tremendously. So communication system is like PECS, picture exchange communication system, where there's images. It might be a cup, meaning I want a drink. There's another image that could be a plate that I'd like food. It could be a smile, so I can indicate something, there's just whatever the vocabulary is, having it visually shown helps. And then a visual schedule is where posted or however you handle it, the child can see we're doing this first, then we're doing this second. So first, we're going to put our water bottles on the shelf and sit down on our spots. And second, we're going to hear instructions and then do stop and go to music. So we practice that listening and responding to cues. And then third, we're going to take those socks and we're going to throw them at the target on the wall, the smiley face on the wall. And this is all graphically represented. So the child knows exactly what they're doing now and what's coming up next. And that gives some security that can really, really be helpful. And then along with that security, some guidance. Okay, we're going to do this 3 more times, and then we're going to do throwing the socks at the wall. And then we're going to play stop and go to music 2 more times. And then we're going to throw socks at the wall. And now 1 more time. And now this is the last time. We're going to go back, sit on our carpet, our floor spots, and then we're going to get ready to throw the socks at the wall. So you give a lot of warning so the child can get ready for that transition. Because if there's going to be difficulties, it's typically during the transitions. So we try to ease them into it. And whenever possible, relate to what the child's interest is. So they're invested in what we're doing. And also, if a child is with challenging behaviors, what's the child trying to tell us in that behavior? That's the first thing, trying to understand what that behavior is designed to communicate to us. Even though it's maybe a very ineffective behavior, what's the communication message and how can we work with that? We have clear expectations and consequences. Minimize competition again. Because if a child views him or herself as a loser, the last thing we want to do is lead an activity where they actually lose. And provide a cooling off place when a child is starting to wobble out of control and just needs a chance to sit on a carpet square in the grass apart from others for a short time and recollect and join. And of course, lots of attention to their many appropriate behaviors, not just getting attention when they're doing something we wish they wouldn't. Sock tails is an example of activity where it's tag, but it's non-elimination. So it's slightly competitive, but nobody's out. So you just take a sock, stuff it so it's hanging out of your side pocket or your back waistband, and everybody's got a sock. Then you try to steal somebody else's sock without letting them get your sock. So it's basically everybody it tag. And you just run all around. As you see here, the adults grabbing a sock from the side of this boy in the red shirt. And then when she grabs the sock, she's not going to keep it. She's going to drop it on the floor or the ground so that now if your sock has been pulled, you can pick up any sock, put it back in and keep playing. So in that way, it's not elimination. And it's really fun and exhausting because you're running all over the place and dodging. But it's really good. So I hope sock tails might be something that you would want to try. And finally, something to do with those socks that are left, the singletons left after the laundry, you can't find a mate anywhere. Well, these socks don't have to match. You just need single socks. And for other children who are overstimulated, minimize the stimulation environment. I mentioned earlier about covering the equipment you're not using yet. Just keep it as simple as possible. Own space away from others if they're too stimulated. Again, this could be someone on the autism spectrum. It's just doesn't want to be bumped by others. Just give them a little space. They're not isolated over there. They just have a little bit more space because that helps them feel more comfortable. And encouraging children that are very hesitant to watch before they join the activity so they can kind of see how it works, what others are doing. Is this something where I think I'd feel comfortable joining? And then hopefully after watching a bit, they will join. And if a child is tactile defensive, does not want to be touched, then of course, hand over hand guidance is not going to work, and ask permission before it is necessary, if it is necessary, to touch a child. And that also is where the child might want to play the activity, but a little bit aside from others, so they know they're not going to get touched by others. So we're getting closer to the wrap up here. Here's some general teaching strategies with everybody that may be especially important for a young child with a unique need. I'll go through that and then just a little bit about the IEP process. So lots of repetition, lots and lots of chances to practice the activity. Playing with typically developing children that can be positive role models is really important. I do not see the logic of taking children with significant delays and probably nonverbal and having them all together with no typical models that are going to be verbal and show how children typically play. Let's get everybody in together so we can learn from each other. And using communication systems like PECs or so forth as needed. Eliminate elimination games. The first people out of elimination games are typically the least skilled. Who needs the most practice? The least skilled people. So why are we eliminating them from the practice they need? And let me just show my favorite, swat the fly. Oh, all right. And then actually let me back up a little bit. So just so you got the blank screen there. So at the end, when I said the slower children typically go after the slower flies, I'm not directing them. I'm not saying you're slower, you go here. They sort it out. They figure, that fly's going too fast. Where's one I can catch and swat? And so it works out very well. So now, just a quick overview before we get into questions and wrap up things. If you're working with a child that you suspect has a disability, then if it's undiagnosed or unreferred at this point, you might communicate your observations to the family and ask them what they're observing and what they found works, and discuss whether referring to a specialist or other resources would be helpful. And I'll go through that process in just a moment. And then being available to share what you're observing with others. Because if you're working with the children on a regular basis, you have very valuable observations about how they function, what works, and so forth. I highly recommend the CDC resource that you see here, and I believe the link is going to be dropped into the chat. This is Learn the Signs, Act Early. So it's every like 2, 4, 6, 8 months, and then 1 year, year and a half, and so forth, right on bump through, indicating things that typically developing children are able to do. So this is a very helpful resource. If you're, with your experience, thinking, I think there's some delays here. I think this child could benefit from some special education. It takes the onus off you and gives you something to turn to when talking with the family about what you're observing and what would be typical development at that age. And as you see, there's a mobile app available to share there. So if you haven't already, please check out Learn the Signs, Act Early.
And Diane, I've dropped that link into the chat so people can copy it there and save it for their own use.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And then if a child does have a disability, then there's an IEP. If it's been gone through the special ed process, there's an IEP, Individual Educational Plan or Program, for children 3 to 21 years of age. If the child's younger than 3, then it's on an IFSP, Individualized Family Service Plan. And if you are working with the child, then you are to get access to this. Sometimes people are a little funny and say, no, you can't see it. Well, my golly, if you're working with a child, you have every right to see what's on that child's IEP or IFSP. So please ask the parents or whoever would be appropriate in your structure for the opportunity to view it and communicate with the early interventionist, special educator, therapist, and share your insights with them as well. So this is my contact information. I'll leave this up for a moment. And now we're coming into the questions and discussion part. And I know Lisa's got some things to wrap up with at the end as well. So I love giving workshops. I love giving virtual trainings as well as in person. If something on early childhood physical activity would be useful for your program, please contact me. And now it's questions. And
Diane,
for a moment, yes.
I'm going to share some of the questions. We have a couple questions in the Q&A, and a lot of people, I dropped in to see if people would be interested in ideas for children who are overstimulated, and all were very interested, many were very interested in an answer to that question. I saw a slide on overstimulated children. And then there's one question about, it says, I'm currently working with a child with some delays, and the other 17 kids most of the time don't want to play with her because she's so aggressive while doing activities.
Mm,
Do you have some suggestions for that?
Well, no easy questions here. Uh, yeah, let's start with the child that's very aggressive. Of course, I don't know the child, so what I say may be way off the mark, and I know we've got expertise among others who are also on this, so if you have um, something to add to what I have, please share. But the child may not know how to play and may need to learn how to play. So if there's the opportunity to work with that one child and one other child who's a very patient, mature child in that activity, and just help the two of them learn how to play together. And while you're coaching the child that is too aggressive, doesn't know how to play, and then help them gradually be able to play with others as well. You're probably already doing this, lots of things like gentle touch, gentle touch, gentle touch, explain what that means, demonstrate it, whatever your words are to prompt the child to be less aggressive there. If that can help. Of course, picking activities where there's less aggression likely to occur, where children are playing together but in their own space, that can help. If it's throwing, I'm thinking like throwing the socks. Everybody can be throwing the socks at a target or whatever together. So we're playing together, but we're throwing toward a common target, and that can help with the aggression. Having lots of socks for every child so that nobody's fighting over the socks can help make that less aggressive too. Any comments in the chat or so forth that can expand on what I'm saying?
Let me look and see.
And
While she's reviewing those, Diane, this might be a quick one you could answer, but people have asked how to find that activity song, the Play in Place. Do you have a link, or can you say the author's name again, please?
So Lisa, that's one of the things I sent to you. Is that something that can be up on the Move Smart website?
Yes, and I was just typing that in, but I'm a slow typer. So yes, all the resources will be up on our website, and Diane actually made some videos for the state of Missouri on where we show her activities, and so those are up on our website too. There's lots of great resources, and we had dropped that in the chat. I can drop it in again.
I can drop in the Move Smart link.
Okay,
I have that if you wanted to move on to the next question since we're short on time.
That would be great, Erica, because there is another question, and the question is, how do you recommend a provider get started with servicing children with disabilities or suspected disabilities? I am a small operation and concerned that I may not be adequately staffed to properly serve with disabilities. However, I have a passion for inclusion and helping students with disabilities to become stronger and overcome.
And I appreciate that effort. Lisa, I think you said there was a link that you had that people could.
Yes. So I dropped in, that would be on the Office of Childhood website. There's an early intervention tab. So if you would go to the health.mo.gov/childhood. Erica, if you can find that in the chat, I dropped it earlier.
Okay,
And
I'll scan back for it. You keep talking.
Okay, yeah, and look in the early intervention tab. Should we do the final prize?
Answer that question first, and then let's.
Okay. Yes, please.
So if you have a child with a suspected disability, of course, recording what you're observing is good. Having a chat with the family and what they're observing is good. Contacting the resource, the Office of Special Education, Committee on Special Education, whatever it's going to be called in Missouri, it exists, and find out the referral process, because the first thing is to share with parents and hopefully get them on board with making a referral. Even if they're not on board, you can make a referral to the Office of Special Education, but no evaluation can be done until the parent agrees to that. So we try to start out with the parents all along. And I think there's another reference that just went in there, so that is great. Good. So yes, regarding the overstimulation of, that's a long one. The deep pressure, getting on the floor, anything like that can often help. And if the child does have a therapist, definitely talk with them. So I'm sorry for that, a very brief answer, but back to you, Lisa.
Okay, we have some questions on, thank you, Diane. Maybe we need a whole email on that in the future, or not email, what am I saying? A whole presentation on that. Diane and I are always looking for, yes. Oh, thank you for the phone number for early intervention too. And we will be sending a link. We keep getting questions because I know it is so hard to get all of the links and everything down when you're in a training like this. So yes, we will
I
send.
suggest taking a picture perhaps if you have your phone handy.
We will send an email. Oh, that's such a great idea. My kids always do that. And then I forget. That is a great idea to take a picture, but we will send an email. And we do have one more prize. And also, most important, we have your final clock hour poll after the prize. So let me share my screen. I'm going to try to do it right this time. And
There,
so
it worked.
is
She
it
turned
sharing?
on her, no, you turned on your camera, but you're
Oh, I
not
turned on my
sharing your
camera,
screen.
but how's the screen?
Now we can see your screen.
Okay,
You can put
from
it in the
current slide.
presentation mode.
There we
There you
go.
go. And
And
Mia
our
is, go ahead.
yes, our prize number 3 is Mia Harris. And I know she's on because she submitted a question. So congratulations, Mia. You receive our 3rd prize. And you'll be receiving the items. We've had a lot of questions on your book, Dr. Kraft. And so we dropped the link to your website in the chat. And now I'm going to give the final clock hour poll information. And then if there are, other questions we can, but for your final clock hour poll, MU conference, Erica will be dropping a Qualtrics survey link in the chat box. And you can click on that. It will take you directly to the survey. We need you to complete all sections of the survey. And most important, please, please, please make sure you look at your moped ID card and enter your name exactly as it appears on your ID. And make sure that you have the correct ID number. But if you want to go ahead and drop the link.
I've dropped it in.
Okay.
And then I also have it set that after the session is over and I collected the actual addresses for who has attended the session today, I will send in a follow-up email that has the link as well. And this survey is open until Monday, so they have over the weekend to fill this out, but it will close on Monday. So make sure to get your responses in. I'm not sure if I double shared that, Lisa, but there you go.
No, I'm glad. And I want to make sure everyone, see if there's any other pressing questions. You all, please, you have my email, Dr. Crafts. Thank you so much for attending. And I just want to say a huge thank you to Dr. Kraft again. You are a blessing to all of us, and we love you in Missouri, and we love having you present and share your knowledge, and we love also listening to our providers and learning from them, don't we? I mean,
Right. So I just want to thank everybody, and Lisa and the organizers particularly, but thank you. This was your Saturday morning that you gave up. I hope it was useful, and thank you for your work with children who really need you.
I completely agree. And we got a little activity in too. I need to work on my hopping on one foot. As I get older, it's not as easy. So that's a good, that, Diane, that's a good tip too. If you demonstrate and be active with your children as you're able, the most important thing is to just be active with them. If you can't hop as good as you used to, well,
Do what you
keep
can.
working on it.
Okay.
If you're done with the poll questions, yes, you can log off. Is there any other instructions on that, Erica?
No, what if you've done the survey, which I'll also be emailing once we get done with this, then we will end the session for all. And we're done for the day, if that covers all of your slides and all of the information that you're sharing out today, Lisa. So
Do you
if it
want to
does,
drop
then
do you want to drop the link in again? We're having some people saying they don't see the poll question. The poll
And it's
question,
I was going to say, it's not a question that's going to show up on the screen. You're going to need to get the email out, the link out of the chat, or watch for the email after the session closes. I will be sending an email just as we did
yes,
for the confirmation letters. So watch for that second email.
yes. So if you don't, you can click on this link that she just dropped in, the Qualtrics, but you will receive an email too. So don't worry if you don't get the link directly from our chat box.
If that
Thank you.
concludes everything you have to share, then we will end the session and we'll close things down. Is that everything for you, Lisa?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, Diane, thank you so much for speaking.
Oh, yes. And thank you all. Enjoy your day.
Yes, have a good day. We will end the session now.